Does Indian society train Indians to cheat and lie? Understanding the cheating culture of India. Indians do not tell the people they meet in the US, Europe, and other places they immigrate because India is a country where cheating is normalized. Indians are very good at seeming personable, but this is part of the way they get non-Indians to lower their guard. You can't cheat someone if their guard is up, so Indians learn to pretend to be non-threatening. Most Westerners confuse this with being friendly. However, it is not actually friendly, and it is part of a strategy. And Indians enjoy talking to Westerners at work, but this is not the type of conversation most Westerners are used to. I call it closer to a type of surveillance. The question is, should you talk to Indians? As soon as Indians obtain the information they want and take advantage of the person they had previously been friendly with, they turn cold very quickly. Indians can't necessarily take advantage of every Westerner they meet, and they gain status from having non-Indian friends. So they may continue to be friendly if they can't find a way to take something they want. For each Indian, the number one accomplishment in life was to get out of India and to a Western country. Cheating is instilled in children by their parents, as is explained in the following quotation. When an Indian child is growing up, her parents ask her at some point, "Beta, which one is your favorite scam?" The kind of scam you like reveals a personality type, a guide to the future, indispensable to worried parents. My answer as a schoolboy was unwavering, "Mummy, for the scam." How Indians view becoming a scammer as a rite of passage. In India, coming to maturity, in part, means learning how to scam. Those people that are not willing to do this are often described as immature, and this is how parents provide their children with necessary survival skills. Another framing Indians as intelligence. An intelligent person cheats, and a slow person does not. This is partly why Indians view Westerners as not as clever as they are. Smart people cheat in the Indian concept. To learn to cheat in India is to learn how to survive. If you don't, society will treat you as an imbecile who never grew up. Indians say this is a response to living in India. However, it brings up how India became this way in the first place. In Indian, there only view two classifications, the exploited and the exploiter. Another statement made by Indians is that there are only two classifications of people, those that are exploited and those that exploit. And since there are only two choices, it makes sense to be the exploiter, which is explained in the following quotation. The working principle is this: if you don't exploit, then you will automatically become exploited. What happens then is that since everyone is cheating everybody else, all this cheating cancels each other out in the final sum. It's the reason people don't change neighborhoods, although familiarity is no guarantee that you will not be cheated. There is a cold-bloodedness to our human relationships. False obsequiousness always follows a successful heist. This is what I was referring to earlier. Indians will often seem very friendly. People will read articles on Indian IT on this website and often say that they have Indian friends. These friends are in the obsequious phase of the relationship, also referred to as the information gathering phase. The quote continues. This cheating can be about the smallest of things, beginning with plumbers, electricians, carpenters, the cab ride from the airport or train station. When Indians come to Western countries, they are faced with high-trust societies. However, that trust has been declining, and as the society becomes less dominated by European culture, income inequality is continually increasing. For Indians, these are perfect cultures that lack the natural defenses that they face when trying to cheat other Indians in India. Scams in India apply at the most basic level, even receiving change. Dealing with scams in India daily. You will hand in a 500 rupee note, the cashier will keep it and return much less than you calculated. When you say, "Hey, what happened to the rest?" he'll reply, "Oh sorry, it out you gave me 100. He's testing you. That's the reason why Indian parents always warn their kids, don't let your guard down for a moment. The moment you do, you've been had. A model where everyone scams everyone else. The following quote describes 360-degree cheating that is part of Indian culture. The fancy gift shop guy will put whimsical price stickers on smuggled items, doubling his profits. But remember, his mother-in-law will get cancer, which is when the hospital will get the chance to screw him. Why? For all our family values, family members cheat each other all the time. Especially when it comes to matters of property. The younger brother will keep squatting on prime ancestral property after the matriarch has died and refused to vacate. Cheating among and within Indian families is widespread. This is true in India and when Indian families migrate to Western countries. From the outside looking in, it appears that Indians are only sticking it to non-Indian outgroups, but I have observed many situations where the exploitation within families is breathtaking. In one case, several Indian men who were quite wealthy running scams in the tech industry would debate which brother would have to look after the mother, which no one wanted in their house. Amazingly, the much higher wealth of several of the brothers did not factor into how the mother was taken care of. Everything with Indians, even in families, is about power, not ethics, as it is tough to discern anything related to ethics in Indian culture. Observation, interaction, information gathering is used to identify the exploitable party. There is no Western concept of a thing being wrong or right. A society without trust. Basically, if you don't look local enough, you don't bargain hard and question every transaction, you will be a sitting duck. That's the default Indian setting. No Indian trusts the next Indian. Trust signals gullibility, not a valued trait in our urban jungle. This gets back to the principle of those that trust is stupid. This expressed itself in a court case where a company found that an Indian consulting company had provided false customer references to them in the presentation. Amazingly, the defense presented in court by the Indian consulting company was that while the references were fake, the customer should have verified these fake references. You can read this shocking defense in the article How to Understand Wipro's Position on Lying. This position by Wipro is the position of Indian culture. It is their prerogative to lie, and it is the other person's responsibility to catch them. This also explains why India, and Indian companies, are so unpredictable. An enormous amount of time of Indians is spent trying to protect themselves from being taken advantage of, while they correspondingly try to take advantage of others. When Indians immigrate to a European-based culture, they are in a situation where they do not have to worry about being scammed. And even better, they have a large population willing to be open to Indians and are taught that everyone has the same ethics. It is wrong to discriminate against people, even if they have a long-established history of being dishonest. Understanding academics in India. Indians will often talk up their degrees. However, if one has enough money, one can buy degrees. Furthermore, there is an enormous amount of cheating in India. Therefore, obtaining a degree does not mean that the Indian in question did even most of the coursework themselves. This is explained in the following quotation. In all my 28 years in this country, I've seen lying and cheating as a way of life. Started all the way back in school when copying from others wasn't just common, but even something people were proud of. Then I went to college and plagiarism was rampant. Copying papers from friends, downloading papers online, etc. was the norm. Even in school science fairs, you had people buying pre-made science projects from shops and passing it off as their own. Every city has these shops, usually near college school stationery stores that will make science projects for you. Some of my friends went on to do PhDs. There is a massive cottage industry of PhD mills. Basically, some guy will write a PhD thesis for you for as little as 20,000. Some third-rate university will grant your PhD on the basis of this fraud PhD. The PhD topic will be extremely generic and not worth its paper. Most Westerners are not aware that, as with most things in India, degrees are just another scam. When Indians come to Western countries, they often add on fake certifications, covered in the article How Indians Coordinate to Fake Their IT Certifications. Suppose we look at Indian PhD. It is essential not to consider a person with a PhD from India as a real PhD. Furthermore, a fundamental concept of a PhD is that one uses evidence to determine the conclusion, which is entirely antithetical to Indian culture. In Indian culture, the approach is to decide which outcome is most financially beneficial and then create the information that supports his conclusion. This is why an Indian with PhD is not the same as a Westerner with a PhD. This is not to say many Western PhDs fake research. This is now standard in, for example, pharmaceutical studies. I am saying that the scientific method is entirely foreign to Indian culture. This explains why no Indian has won a Nobel Prize in India after independence from England, as you can see on the website who won Nobel Prize. A culture of scarcity. India has a culture of scarcity, and it leads to extreme hoarding. You keep the absolute most for yourself and your family and give out the absolute least to everyone else. This is expressed in the following quotation. Insecurity and fear drives us to overprotect interests, make everything doubly sure and worry about the end and not the means. You see people with comfortable salaries stuffing themselves at a buffet to get their money's worth. But they eat at restaurants daily, they aren't really struggling. Indians in the US have demonstrated enormous greed and corruption levels, yet they are virtually never called out for it. Long after they have enough, the pattern of corruption continues. And the excuse given is that they had some restrictions in the past. Number of Indians prosecuted for white-collar crime. This behavior has led to trouble with authorities for white-collar crime. And look at prosecutions by the US government for white-collar crime on Wall Street. Even though Indians are only 1% of the US population, a significant amount of the notable prosecutions have been against people of South Asian descent. Raj Rajaratnam, Rajat Gupta, Anil Kumar, Matthew Matama, etc. On the flip side, one of the reason Indian Americans have done better in the US than other groups like Chinese or Koreans and have source at companies like Google, Microsoft, Pepsi, etc. is that they are willing to take advantage of people, stand up for themselves, take risks. So it works both ways. The problem with the last part of this quote is that Indian Americans have done better in the US than other groups, which is that much of this doing better is taking the benefits of society from non-Indians. So it is unclear how it works both ways. But this is written from the perspective of an Indian, and as I have discussed above, engaging in fraud and white-collar crime allows them to succeed. Therefore, it cannot be wrong in their minds. Indians cheat those around them, which allows them to have higher incomes. Any group dedicated to cheating will do better than those that don't. And there is an extra benefit that Indians have, because they are not white, they benefit from the politically correct culture of not holding non-whites to the same standards of behavior as whites. Indians that immigrate to Western countries have died and gone to heaven. Not only are they presented with a population who have no natural defenses against them, but as they are not white, whites are far less likely to hold them accountable for unethical behavior. The level of delusion on this point has been quite shocking. It has been explained to me that even though Indians do reduce standards, and their existence in the US is bad for domestic workers, everyone is the same. It is wrong, and therefore unethical, to hold Indians accountable in the way I am doing in this article. This means that the ethical problem is not with Indians but with those that call out Indians for unethical behavior. Try figuring out that logic. However, political correctness has never been about being accurate, but about setting up a system that senses accurate information, but stating that non-offensive statements are preferable to accurate statements. Conclusion. The answer to the question posed is yes. Indian culture is dishonest. I don't know what other word describes Indian behavior accurately and succinctly. When they first arrived in India, the British found Indian dishonesty and noted it immediately. Indians like to blame just about everything on the British, but being dishonest isn't something that the British culture brought to India. What mass immigration of unethical Indians means to countries that receive them. Indians are significantly degrading the lives of non-Indians in all of the countries where Indians immigrate. And to understand why, it is essential to know that Indians are bringing their culture with them from India. Since independence, India has made no observable social reforms but has grown its population. For example, India is one of the worst places to be a woman, and it trades places for this honor, with Afghanistan for the worst every other year. Indians strongly support abuse, and many of them are themselves abusive and consider it normal to abuse those of a lower caste than them. Abuse is rampant in workplaces. Indian mismanagement of their country has created an increased desperation level, and Indians then bring this culture to where they immigrate. Being on guard. All non-Indians need to be on guard regarding their Indian culture. Given their track record. Things to be aware of for non-Indians dealing with Indians. If you are speaking to an Indian or working with an Indian, it is very likely that they are lying to you. If you take a job with an Indian company, you must expect horrible treatment and a short tenure with the employer. If you work with an Indian recruiter, expect to be discriminated against. As a non-Indian, you will never be treated fairly. There is no concept of fair treatment in India. If you interview with a company that includes Indian interviewers, expect Indians to discriminate against you in favor of a friend from this caste and social circle who wants that job. If you have Indian co-workers, be careful what you tell them. Indians have an established pattern of targeting the jobs of non-Indians, and then reporting the person as underperforming and then recommending their Indian friends. The only thing Indians have ever done is create exploitive systems. And they are recreating these systems in Western countries where they have immigrated. An excellent example of this is found in how Infosys violated B1 visa law and charged clients a 98.6% margin. Indian companies are not very large and operate in Western countries. However, we receive constant communications about how terrible these places are to work. We have concluded that Indians cause mental health issues among the domestic workers everywhere they immigrate, as is covered in the article Do Indians Cause Mental Health Problems in the Work Environments of Non-Indians? Indian companies operating in Western countries use their appalling standards as a competitive edge, as I cover in the article How IT Outsourcing Firms Reduce Wages by Moving the H-1B Indian Worker Back to India. Multinational expanded these programs to allow Indians into Western countries to increase the profit margin, but at the expense of the domestic population. The overall intent of these multinationals was always to lower the wages of domestic workers, which is covered in the article The Multiple Ways That the H-1B Visa Program Reduces U.S. Wages. The interests of Indians are in direct opposition to the working populations in the countries to which they immigrate. It is easy for Indians to trick Westerners because Westerners normally think that Indians are following Western rules. A major reason Indians are so effective in scamming Westerners in Western countries. The fact that so many people in Western countries were unfamiliar with Indian culture gave Indians a significant advantage in running their scams in these countries. In Western countries where Indians scam non-Indians, this works very well for them. However, in India, where everyone scams everyone else, the system falls apart, which is why Indians are so intent on immigrating from India, which, unless one is rich, is a terrible place to live and has declined since British management. Issue number 1: the takeover of IT by Indians. Indians have quickly taken over large areas of IT in most Western countries. With this takeover has come large amounts of fraud. There are no Indian-run companies that have good reputations. This is a major corrupting influence in all countries where Indians have immigrated. Furthermore, even now many do not understand how they are being taken advantage of. As a culture, Indians learn how to be effective at deflection. Issue number 2: understanding the scam. Inform yourself to protect yourself from Indians. Indians cause large mental health issues wherever they immigrate, so self-protection is critical. If there are large numbers of Indians, the dishonesty is remember that India is truly a country of scams. Issue number 3: who are Indians? We have seen the patterns of Indian behavior in many situations and have developed a roadmap for how they operate. We are one of the few to tell honestly about this.